Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining Painting with Picasso's Grapevine. My name is Leanna Hahn and I'll be your host and teacher for today. Today we're going to take a look at this cute little ladybug. He's just adorable. You know, it's the summertime, we start thinking about these cool summer things, so we're going to go over how to teach us or paint this really fun, loving little ladybug. But before we get started, we always go through our inventory. Today I have 3 brushes with me, pretty standard. I have a number 12 filbert, a number 6 filbert, and a number 1 round. As well, we are working with acrylics. So for today, we're going to be using our light green. We have some cad yellow, black, white, and some standard red. And last but not least, don't forget, we do have our dab rag. This is for making sure that we have dabbed off those paintbrushes and we don't have any water as we're taking it back to the canvas, and as well, our water for washing. So we always take a look at our painting and just say, what are we going to start with? So this is kind of a little bit of a 2-dimensional, not exactly 1-dimensional, but clearly we've got a lot going on in the background. So we're going to go ahead and start on our background, get that moving, and then we'll move to our foreground, which is our ladybug itself. So we'll kind of be getting some nice swishy movements in here, a little bit of highlights with the white, but really simple. So kind of fun, kind of easy, very summery, something hopefully you will enjoy. Now I did go ahead and give myself a little bit of a drawing just to give me a start off. You can do this in pencil, you can do this, I have chose to do this in permanent marker just because as I'm getting closer to some of the edges while I'm doing the background, you can still see it. So if I kind of go over a little bit into the inside of the ladybug, I can still see my outlines and kind of keep my structure intact. So with that, I'm going to grab the number 12 filbert, go ahead, dab that in our water, dab it off. And if you recall, our background was a nice swishy combination of the greens and the yellows and the whites. So a lot of this is going to be blended right on the canvas. So I'm starting off with a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, and we're just going to get that up and down motion started on the canvas. I do a lot of blending like this directly on the canvas, and I like it because you get those nice streaks. It's just kind of a nice combination of all 3 colors. It's not real specific, and that really is enough to give your eyes some interest, some activity going on without a lot of complications. Now you'll notice on the bottom here, I'm working from the bottom up. I do try to keep my strokes, the stops and starts, kind of hidden. So when I'm doing my downstrokes, I'm starting at the top, moving up and down. I don't try to start in the middle, because you see you end up with that little start mark. If you want to get your paint on first, then come back and do some fixing strokes, that's perfectly fine as well. So if you're putting in a lot of paint and working it, while it's still wet, before you move on, come down with those big motion strokes and erase your starts and stops. So just gives it a little bit more of a professional feel, more complete. So this is going to be a very quick process as we're moving from one side to the next, because we want those paints to blend nicely, and they do that best while they're wet. Now again, these are wraparound canvases, so for you folks at home, make sure you grab the side of this, pick it up, get your sides and your edges all covered in paint so that you have an option to hang this on the wall without a frame if you choose to. It just looks a little bit more complete around all sides. And it's very, very quick. Now I'm trying to not get as much into the body of our little ladybug, although in particular, this ladybug's going to get some nice dark colors, so we're going to be using black, we're going to be using red, so some highlights. So I think it's pretty comfortable to say that this will get covered up, but you don't want to overdo it. So as I bring those strokes closer to the outline, make sure you kind of lighten it up. So I use the side of the brush, and I let it kind of run off the canvas. And just keep moving down. Keep your strokes going in the same motion. Make sure that you don't give in to the movement of your arm. So a lot of times people if they're doing left and right, they'll end up doing a curve. If they're doing an up and down, they'll end up doing a curve because your hand naturally moves this way. So make sure at some point you kind of step back, take a look at the directions of your background strokes and make sure they're all uniform before this paint dries, while you still have a chance to fix it. Now you'll notice as well, as I'm putting these strokes down, it's just kind of a 1, 2, 3. I'm not dwelling. And the reason for this is I do like those different colors. I like to be able to see the different colors. And if you continuously go over a section, you're just going to continue to blend and you're going to end up with one new color, a very flat background. If you like that, that's awesome. Go for it. If you're looking to achieve what I have here, then make sure that you move quickly, you don't overwork the strokes, and you just get the paint on the canvas. One would think that my arms would be in awesome shape by now, but it's just somehow it doesn't work that way. I don't know. All right, so I am almost done here. Just the last few strokes here on the bottom. And we'll probably be ready to move into the inside. Cool. All right, again, you at home, make sure you step back, take a look, feel good with the directions, feel good with the paint coverage. If you're getting some dimpling showing through, that's the texture of your canvas telling you that I need more paint. So go ahead, add more paint to it. Once your paint dries, it's difficult to get that blending any longer. One trick may be to use some water, just very sparingly. Grab some water, kind of dab it off so you're not dripping, and go over it with the water and you can kind of reactivate that paint and kind of get it going again. So we're done with our big brush for right now. We're going to go ahead and set that in the water and we'll move into our medium brush. And we're going to put that in there, wake it up, and dab that off. Then we're going to start working with our red. Now, if you recall from our original here, this red has a combination of black going through it. Again, to get these nice strokes through here, you have to do that while the red is wet. And red in particular, like a lot of the other colors, is very translucent. So if I just put red by itself, it's going to start looking very pink. So we'll go ahead, we'll get some red on there. And before we do, what I'm going to do is kind of finish up this last little piece of drawing, just so we know where those wings are. And we'll go ahead, get a little bit of coverage on here. I'm taking my brush, moving it right along the edge, right to the side. And again, you'll notice when I restart a line, I use very large strokes. So go back to the top and bring it down, or go back to the bottom and bring it up. I stay away from doing a lot of in-between strokes because it just leads more cleanup work for me at the end. So we go ahead, get some coverage, and you'll notice here I've got my first little drip as well. So this is actually a wonderful opportunity. So first thing I do, kind of stop it with your rag. A lot of times you can fix most everything. It hasn't dried yet, you can quickly remove it and then go on. I would actually wait till that paint dries if you're still able to see it, then go over it with a little bit of white. White is a wonderful paste, it will hide a lot, and then come back on top of it with the color that you actually want under there. So that's what's nice about acrylics. There are so many ways to fix something that you don't like. All right, so we got our first layer. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce some black. Now I'm not going to go take black directly to this painting. I'm just going to mix it right here in with that red, kind of come up with a little bit of a muddy, dirty red. And we're going to come around on the edges here and just introduce some black. You see it's very strong, and that's why I want you to be very sparing in this whole process. Now, let's go ahead and wash off that brush. Now what I'm going to do, and it's very important to keep moving and working quickly while this is wet, I'm going to grab some more of that red and go right on top of it. And we're kind of mute it down. That way we end up with a nice hint of the black, but not a whole lot. Again, if you're finding that your paint now on your brush is actually blended and you're getting a very dark line, just go ahead and wash it off. And we'll go back to that red again. Fix any problems we have, and then keep on moving. All right, so I'm feeling pretty good about that side. I'm going to go ahead and complete that same process over here, so you get an opportunity to see it one more time. Just moving my strokes, large strokes, up and down, getting some coverage. There we go. Now you'll notice too, you can still see that permanent marker line. So what you'll want to do is get as close to that marker line as possible and go over it just a hair. So we kind of erase that, although we're going to have a black outline on this painting, so won't probably make too much of a difference at this point. But if you don't want to see it, you can cover it. All right, bring it in the muddy. And you'll notice once you add that muddy red and black combination, you get some nice coverage. All right, so let's go ahead, wash off this brush, and do a good job of getting rid of that water. You can see I still had a lot of water left in my brush. You see what happens with that. And let's move into the top. So we're going to give our guy, and maybe it's a lady. I'm assuming it's a ladybug, so we'll call her a lady. So we'll give her a little head. Pretty straightforward, just kind of coloring her in black. Now you'll notice your black is going to be very thick. That is the one pigment where in the combination or creation process, they use very heavy charcoal in it. So it always seems to be very thick. If you're having problems spreading the black along your canvas, feel free to add a little water, liquefy it, and it will move across your canvas a lot easier. Again, be very cautious of how much. You don't want to have those drips. All right. Then I'm going to move down into the body. Keeping my strokes. I'm using my paintbrush on the side, turning it and using it kind of like a pencil to get up there nice and tight in between those little wings. Now for you folks at home, you may want to let your canvas dry a little bit more before you go ahead and try this middle section. If you're reactivating too much of that paint, just means it's not dry yet, so go ahead, let it dry more, so you don't have to worry about picking up any of the yellow or the white or the green. So once we get some good coverage, I kind of come up with some cleanup strokes. And get that looking a little nicer. There we go. All right. So at this point, we're going to be working on our embellishments. So we had a lot going on in this little guy. So he's got some nice white highlights. He's got some little polka dots, some white highlights around here. Let's go ahead and finish up his antennas on top with our tiny brush. So let's move into that number 1 round. Give him some quick, easy little antennas. Very swoopy. Very simple. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and add some of our nice little brown polka dots. Again, for you folks at home, if you're feeling your paint is too wet and you still need to let it dry, feel free to do so. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go on right on top and add these. So I'm trying to keep them pretty large. It's kind of proportionate to the size of our ladybug. But of course, you can add as many or as few as you like. Pretty simple. All right. So one of our last things with the black is we're just going to tighten up our lines. So I'm going to come in here and give our nice little ladybug a little bit of an outline. Now I'm keeping my outline very loose. I don't like people to get stressed out about making an outline. So if it gets a little thick, that's okay. Let it get a little thick, no problem. There you go. And we're going to complete that center line down here and then take it all the way down. Almost done. We're in the home stretch on this painting. There you go. All right. So for right now, I think we're done with black. Our last items, our last highlights, are going to be in white. Now I'll go ahead and work on the background first, because I think my background's kind of dry or close to dry. We've basically just got a whole series of little dots just about everywhere. And they are truly quite random and no specific pattern. And then we've got some nice little swirls that go around them. And this is where I give people coaching suggestions. Don't worry about every single line on all of those swirls. It's okay. We can see part of the swirl. We don't have to see all of the swirl. I don't want you to spend a lot of time going over that same swirl, because it's difficult to get your hand to make that exact same swirl. And then it gets a little shaky and it gets really thick. So just go crazy and don't worry about it. Now we're going to come in with some last embellishments inside our little ladybug. We're going to do some highlights right here on the top. Just a few as well. Let's see, I think we got some little dots inside here. Another trick, if you want to control your dots, is use the other side of your paintbrush. You can get a little bit more of a controlled dot right in the center. And then last but not least, we've got a little bit of highlight right around the edge. And we like these white highlights because it really kind of says, hey, here's the top. This is where the light's shining. And it looks kind of cool. I think we got a few little light streaks here. All right. I think we are just about done. Awesome. So hopefully you have picked up a few tricks. We showed you or talked about how to grab those drips, fix them, and hopefully you had some fun with it. If you'd like to get some more information and learn more about how to do one of these paintings, send an email to info@picassosgrapevine.com. Thank you.